Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, PTCGRadio. So today, we are looking at the top 10 decks for the Pokemon European International Championships. They're happening next weekend in London. If you want to watch the action, you can at twitch.tv/PokemonTCG_EU. I will be part of the casting team from that, along with a load of very talented, lovely people. So if you're not there, make sure you check it out on stream, and if you are there, make sure you come and say hello. Now, since the World Championships, we have had 3 big regionals. We had Bremen on the 16th of September in Europe, Hartford on the 30th of September in North America, and Vancouver on the 14th of October in North America. Now, there was one in Brazil, but it was a bit of a smaller one, and we don't expect many South Americans, Latin Americans, to come over to the European International Championships. Some of them will be, but because it was a smaller regional, I'm not counting it so much looking here. Now, the other thing to remember is that Shining Legends, Crimson Invasion, and the promo Ultra Beast GXs will all be legal at this particular tournament, so we should be expecting a shake-up more than we've had for quite some time. Having said that, I'm still taking established decks with a history of success over these newer decks. So essentially, I've split into 3 categories. Decks that have had a little bit of success, new decks that look really good, and established decks which I really think are going to stay at the top. 2 decks that don't make the list are Xerneas and Metagross. They've seen a little bit of success. Xerneas got a top 8 in Bremen and a top 32 in Hartford. Metagross got a top 16 in Bremen and a top 64 in Hartford. Both of those decks just are not seeing sustained success. They've been around for a while. They are not doing as well as they should, and they're just got too many bad matchups. They're not on the list. That's not to say they're bad decks and won't do well. It's just to say that they wouldn't be in the top 10. Coming in at number 10, Decidueye with Ninetales. It got a top 16 in Bremen, and it got a top 32 in Hartford, though it didn't make the top cut in Vancouver. Now, this really revolves around Decidueye using Feather Arrow to drop 2 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon whenever you feel like it, by which I mean once per turn. Yeah, I know Forest of Giant Plants has been rotated, we've still got Rare Candy, it's still a good thing. Then, of course, we have Alolan Ninetales GX coming in, which has the Ice Blade attack that does 50 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon for just a double colourless energy, and it's got the big attack in Blizzard Edge that does 160, not to mention Ice Path, where if you don't one-hit KO Alolan Ninetales, it can move all that damage back onto you while healing itself. And let's not forget the non-GX Alolan Ninetales and the Luminous Barrier ability that prevents all effects of attacks, including damage, done to this Pokemon by EXs and GXs. And then, of course, you've got ESPEON EX that comes in, gets the devolution action going, so you don't need to take big KOs. You spread a bit of damage around with Decidueye and Ninetales, then you devolve them. This one takes a little bit of a setup, and it's vulnerable to stuff like Acerola if played at the right time. It's a good deck, but it comes in at number 10 because I'm just worried it takes a bit too much to get it going to really see sustained success. In at number 9, Vikavolt Tapu Bulu. This got a top 8 in Bremen and a top 8 in Hartford, though it didn't see any success in Vancouver. And this really just revolves around Vikavolt using Strong Charge to get enough energy onto a Tapu Bulu GX so that you can then do Nature's Judgment for 180 or 210 with a Choice Band. You've got Tapu Wilderness to do 150, 180 with a Choice Band, while completely healing, and the new Pheromosa could be a lot of fun, because you've got the first attack that does 30 for a Grass Energy, but can be used on the first turn of the game to get a cheeky KO on something like a Froakie, as well as a GX attack that for 2 Grass Energy does 50 damage for every prize card your opponent has taken. It's pretty good. Problem is, it's just not seen the sustained success I would want to put it any higher on this particular list. Plus, if you don't get the early Vikavolt, bad things happen. In at number 8, Greninja did nothing in Bremen, but it got second in Hartford and it got a top 8 in Vancouver. And really here, we know the drill. It's been around for a while. Frogadier to use water duplicates to get the rest of your Frogadier out, and then you can either use Shadow Stitching to get rid of your opponent's abilities, or Moonlight Slash to do a bunch of damage, then you break evolve and use Giant Water Shuriken. By the time you are set up, you're doing a whole bunch of damage every turn, spreading damage around, and you've got 170 HP single prize Pokemon. This deck has a reputation for bricking, just not setting up, and it's really vulnerable to Garbodor that really is everywhere at the moment, which is why I can only put it in at number 8. Now, those were the decks that have seen a bit of success lately, but not enough. Let's move on to the new decks, and at number 7, Zoroark GX. Zoroark GX is undoubtedly the top card that came out of the recent Shining Legends expansion. I did a top 10, I'll pop a link in the description, but trust me, it was number 1 by quite some way. The ability Trade allows you to discard a card from your hand and then draw 2, and for a double colourless energy, you can do 120 damage as long as you've got a full bench. It's really quite nice. Then, of course, you remember you've got the Breakthrough Zoroark that can use Stand-In to jump into the active, and Mind Jack does 10 damage plus 30 more for each of your opponent's bench Pokemon, 160 if they've got a full bench, and that's before you bring in something like a Choice Band, and you've got either hitting with a non-GX or a GX, plus you've got the consistency. The weakness to fighting is a bit of an issue because we do expect a lot of Buzzwole to be running around in London, and that's a bit of a shame. But either way, ladies and gentlemen, I am quite a big fan of this indeed. It uses double colourless energy, so you really can combine it with anything. I think this is going to be one of those decks like Golisopod, where we see some unusual builds cropping up in London, but I certainly think it's a deck that you really need to be looking out for. In at number 6, the aforementioned Buzzwole. Buzzwole really here we just love because it's bringing back Hammerhead from Landorus EX. 30 damage for 1 fighting energy, and 30 to the bench. Then, of course, you've got Strong Energy and you've got Fighting Fury Belt, and then you've got a 230 HP Pokemon doing 60 to the active, 30 to the bench. Evolution decks like Gardevoir that really rely on things like Ralts are going to have a hard time against stuff like Buzzwole, because you're just going to be taking quick and easy prizes from the first turn of the game. Now, that's not to say that this is the only thing Buzzwole boasts, but that is the best thing about it. You need a bit of late game hitting and a bit of late game action, and probably the best partner we've got for Buzzwole at the moment is Garbodor. And yes, I know we've seen them before, we've seen them a lot, and I'm sorry, there's just too many decks at the moment where the best way to play it is Garbodor. You've got the Breakpoint one that blocks abilities, you slow them down and disrupt them while using Jet Punch, and then you've got the Trashalanche one from Guardians Rising that just does 20 damage for every item that they've used. Ironically, the biggest issue with Buzzwole is that it's weak to Garbodor, but either way, ladies and gentlemen, this is just a really powerful Pokemon, and there is going to be a whole bunch of this in London, and there's going to be a lot of people that just end up winning games playing Buzzwole in 2 or 3 turns because their opponent doesn't set up, and all of a sudden their free prize is down, and they're done. But I think the best new deck coming out of Crimson Invasion is actually Silvally, so I've got it in at number 5. Silvally is a crazy good Pokemon that for free energy does 120 while attaching a basic energy from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon, and it's any basic energy you like. Add into that the ability that gives all of your basic Pokemon free retreat, and the GX attack, which is the same as Lycanroc's 50 damage times the number of your opponent's bench Pokemon, and you've got a really powerful Pokemon. I was playing this on my stream, twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. People kept putting EXs and GXs in the active when they had enough bench Pokemon for me to KO with Rebel GX. I think a lot of people are forgetting the GX attack on Silvally, which is really good. Oh yeah, and you've got the memory cards as well, so you can make Silvally either fighting type and take out Drampa, Zoroark, etc., or you can make it psychic type and get a KO on ESPEON and Buzzwole. Silvally is weak to Buzzwole, but time you bring in your Psychic Memory, you're not really scared of Buzzwole at all. It could be combined with almost anything, although better with basic Pokemon because of the ability. Joe Bernard of Omnipoke says, and I agree with him, that the best combination here is with Registeel and stuff like Cobalion, some basic metal Pokemon. I did actually do a video about this that I'm hoping I uploaded yesterday, so do check that out. I'll give you a list and you can see a couple of games. I think it's good enough to come in at number 5. It's on my radar as the best new deck in London. In at number 4, we have got Volcanion. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I don't see any of the new decks that instantly strike me as redonkulous. And I am really going to start focusing here on the decks that have done well since the World Championships in this format. Volcanion got a top 8 in Bremen, it won the Hartford Regionals, and it got a top 32 in Vancouver. It's a crazy good deck, and the thing about Volcanion is it's got a lot of options, and just so we're clear, I'm lumping them all in together. You've got the baby Volcanion, hey Nick, that does 20 damage for a fire energy, and you attach a basic fire from your discard to each of 2 bench Pokemon. Then you've got Volcanion EX, that's got the ridiculous Steam Up ability, discard a fire energy from your hand so that your basic fire Pokemon do 30 more damage this turn, and it stacks so you can do this 2 or 3 times in one turn to do 60 or 90 more. And then of course you've got Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh can do 180 damage flat out, 210 with a choice band. And you've got Kiawe, so it's not even that difficult to get the energy on Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh is so good that people have started teching Tapu Fini GX into their decks just so they can use Tapu Fini's GX attack to get rid of an early Ho-Oh with a Kiawe. That is how good Ho-Oh is. You've also got Salazzle, which is alright. It sees some play in some of these decks. And really, it's Diabolical Claws. 50 damage for each prize card you have taken. So when you've taken 4 prizes, you're doing 200, 230 with a choice band. That is probably going to be your final 2 prizes. In at number 3, Golisopod Garbodor. It came second at Worlds and people thought it might drop off the map, but it won the Bremen Regional Championship and made top 8 in both Hartford and Vancouver. Garbodor we've talked about, so we don't need to go through in much detail here. We just add in Golisopod, which is mostly ridiculous for its first impression attack. 120 damage for a single energy as long as Golisopod was on the bench and came active that turn. Then in theory your opponent doesn't one-hit KO because you got 210 HP, that's quite a lot. You play an Ace Roller to pick up your Golisopod GX and then bring up another one and you just do 210 every turn while using Ace Roller, and you've got the Garbodors sitting in the back. And I even like the GX attack here. 150 damage and you switch to the bench to protect yourself. 180 with a choice band is enough to get something like a Volcanion, for instance. And even Armor Press here. 100 damage and then during your next turn, damage done is reduced. You know what? That sounds alright by me. I don't find it the most consistent deck when I play it, but it's clearly one of the best. Now, I think numbers 1 and 2 could be flip-flopped around. I wouldn't argue if you did flip them around. I am set on my particular order, however. I think the second best deck for London is Gardevoir Sylveon. It won Vancouver, the most recent of the big regionals. It got a top 4 in Hartford and it got a top 8 in Bremen. Although, to be fair, the top 8 in Bremen didn't actually play Sylveon, but over the past couple of months, it really does seem like Gardevoir is better with Sylveon. Gardevoir, in and of itself, is a little bit ridiculous. You've got the ability Secret Spring that allows you to attach an extra fairy energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon. Then Infinite Force does 30 damage for each energy attached to both active Pokemon, and you can use double colourless energy here to count double. Then you've got the GX attack to put 10 cards from your discard pile into your deck. Either you can recover resources to use later on in the game, or you can just get rid of some item cards so your opponent's Garbodor is less effective. Either way, it's a crazy good Pokemon. And using the same evolution line, you can grab yourself a Gallade, double colourless energy, 130, as long as you've used a supporter card this turn. And then you're hitting fighting weakness against stuff like Silvally and Zoroark, not to mention the Premonition ability that allows you to rearrange the top 5 cards of your deck, and you'll probably be playing Octillery here so that you can rearrange them and then instantly draw them. But arguably, it's Sylveon that's really put this deck over the top. It evolves from Eevee, but you can just attach a Fairy Energy and then it instantly evolves, which is great. And you've got Magical Ribbon, search your deck for up to 3 cards and put them into your hand. If your opponent doesn't end you, you are guaranteed a great turn. And let's remember, if you go second, start Eevee and just attach a Fairy Energy, you can get a turn 1 Magical Ribbon. Even if your opponent does end you, you're getting a hand refresh every turn, and then the second they don't end you, you Magical Ribbon. Then you've got PTCGRadio that just forces your opponent to pick up 2 of their bench Pokemon. And that's great, because against things like Metagross that would generally be really bad for you, you can make your opponent pick up 2 Metagross and really put them behind in terms of their setup in the game. But I still don't think that it is the best of the decks for London. I think the best deck for London is Garbodor Drampa. Although I say Drampa, most of the best lists like Tord Reklev's actually play ESPEON as well. The argument against this is that it didn't win any of the 3 regionals we had lately. The argument for it is it never got less than top 4. Second in Bremen, top 4 in Hartford, top 4 in Vancouver. It has seen an almost unprecedented amount of success and continues to do so. And if you want a quick spoiler alert for the European Championships, Tord Reklev is going to top cut with this deck. He always does. We've talked about Garbodor, we don't need to go into it again, but you do then grab yourself Drampa, which for free energy does 150 as long as you've got a damaged Pokemon on your bench, and you've got Potown and Rainbow Energy to get the damage on your bench. Or maybe your opponent will damage your bench for you. Who knows? You've got Righteous Edge that does 20 damage and discards a special energy attached to your opponent's active. Really good against decks like Golisopod that really rely on special energy. And then you've got Big Wheel GX that allows you to just shuffle your deck and get an extra 10 cards. A new hand of 10 cards. So if you have a bad start with this deck, you don't have a bad start with this deck because you've got Drampa. It's almost ludicrous in how great it is. Oh yeah, and now these decks tend to be playing a 1-1 ESPEON line. You've got the same Eevee, so you can get the turn 1 ESPEON just like you could Sylveon. 1 energy, 30 damage plus confusion. Really nice for slowing your opponent down. Psychic is a good psychic type attack, really good against stuff like Buzzwole. And then Divide GX allows you to put 10 damage counters anywhere on the field. Maybe you take multiple prizes, maybe you get rid of a benched threat that your opponent has. Either way, I believe this is the best deck in the format because you've got options. Gardevoir is a great deck and I would not be mad at you for putting it number 1, but I think Garbodor Drampa ESPEON has just got too many different things that it does and it's had too much recent success not to put it at number 1. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, especially with these lists, I want to know what you think, so let me know in the comments. Go nuts! Be nice! Give me your own top 10 list. Tell me which decks I'm undervaluing. Tell me which decks I'm overvaluing, but remember the rule when we do a list. If you're going to take a deck out, you've got to put a deck in its place. This is the longest video I've done for a little while, other than PTCGO videos, of course. So it's taken me longer to make and edit this video than pretty much any video in months. So do make sure you click that like button. Show me that you want some of these longer videos occasionally. And subscribe if you haven't done so. It would make me happy. Make sure you follow me over at Twitch at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. That's where live action happens. And if you want to support the channel and get some of the now weekly bonus podcasts where I answer all of your questions, you can do so at patreon.com/PTCGRadio. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.